Well, their features are undeniable. Long wrinkled face, loose skin, and big droopy ears. And when it comes to sniffing out problems, the Bloodhound is your go-to breed. According to the American Kennel Club, this independent, friendly, and inquisitive sleuth hound does one thing better than any creature on earth: find people who are lost or hiding. On this episode of the Paw Report, we visit with a man who spends a lot of time working with and training this happy hound.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
We are back on the road for this episode of the Paw Report, and we would like to thank Ron Slifer for inviting us to his kennels today to learn more about the world-famous sleuth hound. So thank you, Ron, for joining us and setting up this beautiful area for us to record today.
You're welcome. Enjoy it.
How did you your passion and your love is the Bloodhound. How in the world did you get started with this breed?
So I got started, I was a hunter at the time. I bow hunted for 26 years and just loved bow hunting for deer. And I'd shot a deer and lost the deer. I couldn't find the deer. And back then, that was about 10 years ago, it was legal to track with a dog. It's been legal in Illinois to use a dog to track wounded deer for about 15 years now, 18 years, I'm sorry. And I knew that, and I thought, you know what, I had a friend that kind of did it, and I'm going to do this myself. And the Bloodhound was the breed I wanted. It's the old Beverly Hillbillies dog. That
Absolutely.
That one always captured my attention when I was younger and growing up. I got to have one of them dogs. So I got one, and we trained that dog to track deer. And that's how I got into Bloodhounds. It just kind of grew from one to now we've got 8.
Oh boy, and some puppies too, which we're gonna meet. So this wasn't you always had Bloodhounds as a kid. This was just something that you knew about the breed, and as you got older and did some hunting,
So I grew up with dogs. We had mutts and mixed dogs and whatnot, but the first actually working dog that I ever owned was a Bloodhound. Yeah, and that was Dio at 10 years ago.
Well, they say the Bloodhound is the dog with the nose that knows, the world famous sleuth hound. Jewel is running around in our little area here, and I'm sure you're going to be able to call her over. But what are some of the other very distinct characteristics of the Bloodhound? So
what it is about a Bloodhound, the top tracking dog, what they call it, is they're just built for it. A Bloodhound, Jewel, come here, Jewel, come here. A Bloodhound's got the long ears, obviously. That's the trademark signature. Come here, Jewel. If you come here, girl. And those long ears, they actually serve a purpose. It's not for listening, because they don't listen. They're kind of stubborn sometimes. But so when a Bloodhound puts its head down to scent, those long ears make a funnel and funnel the scent to its nose. And then the looser skin, when she puts her face down, the skin kind of folds over her eyes. So that limits her vision a little bit, but it increases her sense of smell. So that's a built-in feature as well. So they're just a tracking machine, so to speak. The olfactory, there's 3 million olfactory receptors in a Bloodhound. Something like probably a German Shepherd or a Lab's going to have 250, 200 million. So they got way more scent receptors for smelling. So they're really built for it. They're just a nose with a body attached to it.
Let's go off of built. So are males and females about the same size? How big do they get? Color, other characteristics?
Yeah. So your females are probably going to be on average, an average is 80 to 90 pounds, and then your males will be upwards of 110 to 125 pounds. Colors will vary with what Jewel is there. She's a black and tan. You can have a liver or you can have a red. There's 3 different types of colors on the Bloodhounds.
Temperament. Jewel is just a gem,
Yes,
literally.
she really is.
You can just see her smile. But as far as, are they happy dogs? Are they lovable dogs?
So they are very lovable dogs. All dogs are a little different. I've seen a few that can be a little ornery at times or whatever, but in general, a Bloodhound is a very, very good family dog. Very laid back somewhat. That's a big misconception. I said it earlier about the Beverly Hillbillies dog laying on the porch. They are very energetic. They are a large breed dog. They like to get out and run. That nose gets them in trouble sometimes, and they are very strong. So in Illinois, when I track, the dog has to be on lead by law at all times. So I maintain control of the dog. So a 100-pound dog is dragging me. Has dragged me on the ground before. If I fell down, it has dragged me 20 feet before I can get up. So they're very strong. So a big misconception is what I tell a lot of people when we sell a puppy to them is they're not that laid-back dog. They are as they get older, but in general, as they're younger like that, they're very energetic but very rewarding. They're a very fun dog to have.
And you said good with family. You
Yes.
have little ones in your family.
Yep.
And they roll around with them and hold them and play with them. So,
yes.
If somebody was out there just thinking Bloodhounds might just be too big and rough and tumbly, but they're great with kids. And
yeah. So I never had any in the house until the last 3 years, and then we started 2 in the house. We had 1, and then we added another. So we got 2 Bloodhounds in the house, and I know many people that have them in their house as pets and stuff. Very, very good dogs.
What about caring for a Bloodhound as far as health, nutrition, bathing, grooming? Is there a lot that comes with that? Come here, Jewel. Jewel's got very short
Yes.
hair.
They do.
They shed?
Yeah,
like
they
a lab?
do. Twice a year, the first half of the year and the last half of the year.
What about,
all year long.
Yes.
They do shed a little bit, yes.
Now, what about grooming? Do you have to bathe and brush, or do you just kind of let them?
So there is a bit of a musty smell that comes from a hound. That's kind of hounds in general. We don't bathe her a lot. I think a lot of that depends on the diet, what you feed the dog. We do our research and feed them really well and stuff. So that kind of limits the odors. Sometimes you can get ear infections from, and I think a lot of that's from the food you feed the dogs and stuff too. But no. We don't have too much trouble with our dogs inside. We do bathe them occasionally, but look after their ears and clean them occasionally and stuff like that. But
is slobber a part of your everyday life?
So
the hounds like to slobber.
So out of my 8 Bloodhounds, I do have 1 hound that's got what I call a wet mouth, and she does slobber a lot. Mudflat Molly's her name, and she's a slobber hound. But my 2 dogs inside, I think a Bloodhound, the ones, most of them I've seen, when they get excited, they tend to slobber. But for the most part, they don't slobber all the time, other than the one I told you about, Molly. She's just a mess. She just does it all the time.
Well, slobbering's not a health problem, but
no.
Do they come with other, sometimes other breeds may come with hip dysplasia or diabetes or prone to something. Have you noticed anything with the Bloodhound breed?
Yeah, the ears can be an issue. I talked about that a little bit. The heavy ears, they don't get no air in there, so they'll be buildup and wax buildup and cause issues and yeast infections. Sometimes if the skin's a little too loose on the Bloodhound, you might have to do a surgery to correct that loose skin around the eyes. That can be an issue. But the big thing on a Bloodhound is bloat, where the stomach can actually twist, and it can close off on both ends, and it can kill the dog. So there is a surgery you can do to perform. It's called gastropexy. We do that on our Bloodhounds just to prevent that. But that's a big thing in Great Danes, any deep-chested dog like that. Bloodhounds is kind of prone to that. And then, of course, your cancers. It seems like nowadays cancer's just all over. And I think, it's probably, again, because of the foods.
Bloodhounds are smart. I think, going back to your Beverly Hillbilly reference, they kind of, get a ding-dongy, goofy rap, but they are very smart dogs.
They are. I always said to my wife and my kids, I said, you give them an inch, they take it a mile. If I leave a latch off a gate one time, they pop that gate open. They're very observant, but they are goofy, like you said. We've had them bury their heads in a bucket of water trying to get a drink before, and just goofy, funny things. And that's the good thing about a Bloodhound, too. That's just that goofiness of them, They are just goofy, like Goofy the dog on Disney.
You've got a lot of experience working with the breed, so let's go back to the beginning and talk about what you do and your experience with them.
Sure. So, like I said, originally I got my first Bloodhound to track wounded deer, and I really didn't know what I was doing at the time when I was training the dog. And, you know, and you just kind of learned as I went. And I had a friend, a mentor, help me, Dan Hilly, and he'd done tracked a few years. But basically, I was going to specifically just track wounded deer for the hunters and stuff. That was my thing in life at the time. I was a hunter and stuff, and I actually gave up bow hunting, of 26 years bow hunting, to take over and track full time. So I gave up the hobby of hunting
To help others.
Yeah, to help others now with tracking. And you know, it's the best. You want to do the ethical thing and recover your deer. You know, these hunters shoot a deer, and sometimes you just can't find them, and the dog will come in and find them for them, and it just makes the day. But it's a process on training a dog like that. I always say at first, with a bloodhound, it's instinctual to them, you know, to track. They're built for it. It's in their bloodline. Like a herding dog, we've got a corgi. Well, that dog's a natural herding dog. We've got goats out here, and it chases the goats all the time. So these bloodhounds, it's really a little bit easier to train a bloodhound to do this, but it still takes a lot of time and effort and patience. You know, it's just, you have to, being in Illinois, when you work on a lead like that, you're a team with the dog. So it's a bonding process. The bonding is the most important thing, I think, when you're training a dog like this. Sure, we go out and train the dog with deer feet. I had a friend that makes these shoes that he actually we put the hoof in here from a deer and put these shoes on, and then we mimic a wounded deer track.
Oh, wow.
Because a deer's foot, if it's injured, will create a scent. It's through the interdigital gland that leaves this wounded scent, and that's how we train the dog. Because if you think about it, sometimes we'll go on a deer track a day later after the deer was shot, sometimes 2 days later, and still find that hunter's deer form. And how many other deer has crossed that path in a 2 days time? So I'm training her or him, whichever dog I'm training at the time, to pick up on a specific scent and stick with that scent and disregard all the other scents. And a lot of that's in the training itself too. It's very high reward, high praise. We do these mimic tracks, and when it's successful, it all works out. We give her the treat and praise, and it all clicks. Bloodhounds are very motivated, food motivated, and so am I.
They're counter surfers too.
They can be. They can be. And we don't allow that, but yeah, if you allow it, then they're on the counter, and that's just one thing we don't allow.
Can we go back to your service for just a moment? And you did talk about it, but let's go a little bit deeper into it. So if I'm a hunter out there, and you said as far as north of, close to Chicago.
Yeah.
And I'm out hunting, I get a deer, and I've searched myself all over the place in the terrain and can't find it. That's when I really call somebody like you in.
Sure.
And you bring, typically how many dogs do you bring in? Is it just one?
We just one dog. I do have a backup dog, but I always just take one dog with me at the time. You know.
And so when you get to a location, does the dog kind of go over like smelling the hunter? I mean, is that part of it, or get a good pull off the hunter's scent?
So generally what I'll do on the phone, I'll do an interview over the phone, get all the details I can, get the location. We'll show up, talk to the hunter a little more, get a few more details, walk to the location where the deer was maybe shot, or somewhere on the blood trail itself, the track itself where he'd tracked it, introduce the dog to the scent, and then I'll take a knee, harness the dog, and that's a sign there. When I put a special harness on the dog, it's starting to relate, okay, we're going to work, this is my job, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go out here and find this scent here, and we're going to track it down and hopefully find it. And who knows how long it'll take. Sometimes the deer just go on and on to another property, and we have to get permission to go there. And
do you find that sometimes the dogs might pick up another scent? I mean, obviously you don't know, you're just following along with them, but do you find, and I know this is probably part of the training too, that they get off track?
It is.
A lot,
and
because there's a lot of stuff out in the woods.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, sometimes we're doing a track that's 2 days old, so a lot of other deer or animals that cross the track then, leaving essentially a fresher, hotter scent that could distract the dog. So there again, that's where that training and that bonding comes into play, and the teamwork. That's my goal there. That's my job. Is I watch that dog, observe that dog, and know when the dog is off. That's my job. She's doing her thing, scenting and finding what I think is hopefully the target, what we're looking for. But when she's off, I generally know put her back on the track. We'll work it out eventually.
How young do they start? So you've got several dogs here. Do you eyeball a dog that you know that you're going to start training, that you've kind of watched grow up from being a puppy, and you know instantly that they've got the temperament or the characteristics or the personality? You pinpoint a dog. Start taking me through again that, and you mentioned some of it, that training process from puppy to adult dog.
Yeah, so there is little tricks of the trade that I've got. Everybody's got a preference on what they prefer in a puppy when they see a puppy, but variables is the biggest thing on a dog. I mean, dogs are all different like people. Me and you are different in different abilities. Dogs are the same way. Prey drive is a big thing in a dog. A good example is we had a dog 2 years ago. It was a male dog, and it just didn't want to track for 2 years. I thought it was going to be a great dog. As a puppy, it looked like this was going to be a great tracking dog. I worked practically 2 years on this dog trying to get it track, and it just wouldn't track. And then one day in the front yard, I was out there with my fiance, and we was setting up a mock track, and it's like a light switch come on with this dog, and it just started tracking. So sometimes there's those things can happen with a dog. You know, you just got to bring it out in the dog. And like I said, sometimes there's that ability in the dog. You catch it right off the bat, and they're quick learners, and they love it. But as far as training, like I said, I always start as young as I can, not so much on the tracking part of it, because with a bloodhound, like I said, it's instinctual, but the bonding part, getting obedience, getting recall, all that down first, because it's a lot easier to train an obedient dog versus one that's not. So, and then probably around the 6 month mark or somewhere 6 months to a year, then we work on the nose training. It's just shorter tracks with high reward, high praise. It starts to click with the dog. Then we make longer, older tracks, more turns, curves, length, and make it more difficult. So it becomes challenging, but fun. We always make it fun for the dog.
And your expertise in training and obedience has really led you around the country. I mean, you not only do the guide service, but you also help others. So tell us about that part of your life.
So yeah, 10 years ago, I never dreamt this would have been what it's become. And social media is probably a lot of it. It's changed a lot. It brought a lot to light. When I first started tracking deer, a lot of hunters didn't even think it was legal. They didn't know it was on the books and legal in Illinois. But through social media, everybody's now aware that it's the thing. It's kind of the new big thing happening now in the hunting industry, hunting deer anyway. But yeah, it's just led me to Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, all over Illinois, and just meeting people, seeing all kinds of places that I'd never probably been in my life before, you know, and just, I like to do that, get out and drive around and see old barns and stuff like that. But then we do have a litter of puppies every year. We generally try to have one litter, and the people I've met through that, you know, we've had people from New Hampshire to New York to Georgia, Texas, Michigan, so we've got puppies all over the U.S. And just meeting those people and making families happy and stuff, it just, and
new friends too.
And it is friendships, meeting these hunters and stuff. I always say, you know, my biggest reward in life is not getting paid for what I do. It's not like I make a lot of money what I do. It's strictly donation basically. But friendships, I feel that if I go out of state somewhere and I break down somewhere, hey, I've got a contact here of somebody I helped before. It's like, it's time to pay it back now, maybe, you know. So
well, you said you light up when you talk about them, and you mentioned puppies, and how ironic when we're sitting here doing our interview, you have some little ones.
We do.
Your wife's gonna be gracious enough to grab one, and you're gonna show it off.
So
but in the spring, you try to, your litters come in the...
Yeah, because I work my dogs in the fall, and if I can't have them in the fall. I have puppies in the fall. We have before if it's not a working dog, but this was our spring fling litter is what I call it. We had 6 puppies, and ironically, of the 3 colors, you can have the black and tan, the liver, and the red. We had a mix of all 3, and we had 4 boys and 2 girls.
Oh, wow. So now, is one color, is that, you know, like with labs, there's chocolate and white or yellow and black. Is there one color that seems to be the more popular?
So it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny on that.
Oh boy, Tara's bringing 2. My husband said, "Now don't bring home a bloodhound." Oh my goodness.
They're little chunkers.
Oh my. Now, have you named them?
I have. So being it's spring, I've named them after items you see in the spring. So we've got mud, puddles, twig, and we got daisy and blossom. And what was the last one, Tara? I forgot.
Well, they're cute. Why don't you
Yep.
name a couple of them Cutie Pie? Because they are darling.
I forgot the last one's name, the little boy.
You know, obviously having pups is memorable to you.
Sprout.
But
It's Sprout.
Sprout. Having pups is, you are precious, is memorable. But you probably have a slew of other stories that come to mind that just make you happy. What are some of your memorable stories raising bloodhounds and taking your service and your knowledge all over?
I have to say, as far as tracking for hunters and stuff, probably the most memorable tracks is when we're tracking for a youth, and it's their first deer they've shot. You know, and they're disappointed and let down and distraught. They've shot a deer and couldn't find it, and of course adults are the same way. It just eats at you when you shoot a deer and you can't find it. But finding those kids' first deer, I remember we was in Shelbyville one night. It was late night tracking a girl's deer. She's probably 12 or 13 years old, and the dad was with us, and we was running through the woods and the briars and stuff, and here it's dark at night, and the lights are on, and we're running through the woods, and all of a sudden I said, I think I see a white bill. I think we found your deer. And I heard that little girl's voice just go, oh, really? You know, and I just, the excitement and just that gasp of air, I just never will forget that. And I've experienced that multiple times over, you know, with younger kids like that. Those are the best ones. Those you just can't replace those because I know they're going to talk about it the rest of their life. You know,
Right.
It's something very memorable in their life. It meant a lot to them.
You had a strong bond with the particular dog too, and I know that's not just one memory. That's a lifetime of memories with your buddy.
Is. And eventually, as I said to you earlier, I'm probably going to write a book, and it's going to feature him. And that's my star tracking dog, Dio. I had 3 daughters, and he was a male dog, and he was a son I never had. And he unfortunately passed away last July. But he gave me a lot of life, you know, and I gave him a lot of life in return. We lived life together for 10 years, and it was very wonderful.
Well, that was, you know, my next question is what gives you the most joy in raising and bringing the Bloodhound into your family. And it's probably not one thing. It's probably just the friendship and the love and the unconditional love that you get from the animal.
You know, it's funny. It's just with anything, the more time you spend with them, the closer bond you're gonna get. It's just like me and Dio, for example. We just had that bond that we could be in the truck together and not talk, but it's like we just communicate. You know, we knew each other's feelings and emotions. You know, and it's just that's something that a lot of people probably look past and they don't understand or don't get it if you don't spend the time with the dog. I know life gets busy sometimes, and it's hard to spend a lot of time with a dog. But man, if you spend more and more time with them, it's just unreal, the bond that you can get and the life and the joy you can get from a dog. It's just amazing.
And what a breed to do that with. These 2 little ones will probably eventually go to a family, to a loving family. What could you say to someone that's considering, thinking about, researching, bringing a Bloodhound into their family? I mean, as somebody that wants to make sure that these pups go to the right place,
Sure.
What could you know, as we wrap up our interview here, what is the best advice that you can give to somebody?
Sure. Most everybody's got the internet. Research the breed. You know, there's so many things about, all dogs are different. All breeds are different. There's different quirks about them and stuff, but definitely the internet's at your fingertips. Do the research. Talk to any potential breeders and feel them out. Ask them about their bloodlines and what kind of health testing they do and whatnot. There's just a mirage of things that, if just take your time and be patient, you know, and do your research is a key thing.
Good advice. Ron Slifer, you've got a big heart for Bloodhounds. You've got a beautiful place here, beautiful dogs, and thank you for doing what you do, Slifer Bloodhound Services. I know that you've brought joy to a lot of families, and you've brought joy to a lot of hunters that, you know, we're probably in a pretty low place, not being able to find, you know, what they set out to do. So we appreciate you being a part of the Paw Report. This is a first for us. We've never had the opportunity to talk about Bloodhounds, and it was nice to have you showcase the breed.
I greatly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, thank you, pups, for being so good, and Jules running around here somewhere. Thank you, our viewers, for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. Until next time, I'm your host, Kelly Goodwin, and we'll see you then. They're waking up from the naps.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.